on, guys? Welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. Me and Sean today, we're holding it down. The fellas are off in Oregon, scouring the nurseries out there and touring gardens all over the place. But we're holding down the farm, so today we thought we would jump in and do a video.
So we're here talking about garden design. We're going to talk about height, width, depth, and layering of your garden.
Yeah, we've got a collection of plants here today that's going to kind of give you an example of how to landscape in that kind of southern climate. All of the plants we're going to be talking about today are rated either 6 through 9 or 5 through 9. So these are a group that would work well together in a very specific landscape design that you're trying to do at your home. We're excited about sharing this with you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We're always trying to come up with new video ideas. We got a ton of content out there to try to help you guys understand how to use these plants in your landscape. We all know that when you order these, they're not just staying in a pot. Sometimes you'll pot it into a container, but most of the time they're going to be planted out in your landscape and garden. So we wanted to bring a video today to help you kind of get a collection of plants that work well together.
So let's talk about garden design. Let's talk about how you want garden layering.
Yeah.
And people might say, what is garden layering? So you have your foreground, your midground, and your background. And most importantly, I won't say most importantly, but something that a lot of people forget is your vertical, is your height. So when it comes to garden design, you want to look at your area and see, one, how much space do I have? We've got this awesome tree right here, the autumn gold. So what do we say? This gets about 20 foot in about 10 years?
Yeah, this thing gets big, gets a nice big vertical interest. It's going to be like a shade tree size plant out in your landscape, giving you a huge presence out there. This is something that, you know, when you think about planting this, you definitely want to study where you're going to plant it, make sure you give proper spacing for it. And because this thing's going to get big. A lot of people, you know, you get the 2 gallon, you think, oh, look at this cute little tree, and you plant it right up next to your house. Next thing you know, in 10 years, that thing is like overgrowing its space.
And you've got to want to watch for overhangs. If you plant it close, is there overhang on your house? Are there power lines?
Yeah.
You don't want your tree to get too big and it starts growing into power lines if that happens to be near it. And then you got to go hack the top of it. And then you look at your tree and it looks like, why is that top of that tree just hacked? You want to look for power lines, overhead lights, anything like that that your tree can grow into. And a tree, when I talk about your vertical, I'm talking about your height going up. So you talked about before your shade tree. So that gives you something when you start getting to these other plants that give you your height where you can start up front with something that's smaller. Mm-hmm. Here I've got a low graph orangeola.
Yeah.
So you see how low that's going to sit to the ground. We could put that closer to the edge of your garden bed and then actually come in with a high graph orangeola and we can place them so you've got layering, you've got a height difference. What's really cool, we're standing here at Matt and Tim's parents' garden.
Yeah.
And they've got a tamukiyama, or actually 2 tamukiyamas, and they've got a high one in the back and a short one in the front. And now as they've matured, it looks like one specimen, doesn't it?
Yeah, man, it's really amazing some of the plants that they have out here. And it really inspires me always thinking about garden design. And one of the big inspirations for my personal garden is this garden here. I mean, I come over here, I walk through it, I see how you can work in a small space. And it's all about being strategic about where you're planting what and the size expectancies for these different plants. And then again, like you said, even with whether it be a low graft or high graft can play into how your garden design looks. And, you know, we're talking about some of these big plants like the Ginkgo there. And you're right, Sean, you can think about planting smaller and shorter plants out in front of that to kind of accent that big tree behind it. And then you're talking about contrasting colors is a big thing for me too. I always like to try to play off of those colors.
Absolutely.
And right over here we've got let me grab this real quick. We've got a hot blonde. This thing is absolutely beautiful. It comes out a golden yellow color in the spring, going to a bright cherry red in the fall. And so just thinking about this group of plants that we have over here and how you can pair those things up, we have the Ginkgo that comes out green and goes yellow in the fall. and you got the hot blonde that comes out yellow and then goes red in the fall. And if you planted that out front of that ginkgo to give that contrast with maybe a low graft orangeola out in front, I mean, you're talking about just an amazing array of colors. And I think it's important when you're doing your landscape design to think about your contrasting colors.
Absolutely. You bring up a great point, your colors. So when I did garden design, before I came to Mr. Maple, that's what I did, was garden design. And the one thing that I always strived for is you wanted your garden to perform all season long. And that's where those colors come in. You want something to be blooming, changing color, pushing new growth.
Yeah.
And when we say performing, think of music. You want that symphony playing.
Yeah.
So when something starts to do something different, and so example, we've got some hydrangeas here, we've got an everred here. We got blooms coming from them, and we've got different time bloomers. Tell me about it. You picked out several that are going to be blooming throughout the season.
Yeah, grab the LA Dreamin. We'll kind of give them a showcase here of some flowering shrubs. So we've got a beautiful hydrangea. It's LA Dreamin. That's going to give you some beautiful like purples, blues, and pink colors on that bloom. It's going to be late, like summer and fall. So you get blooms in the summer and fall on that. A beautiful plant. One thing great about this particular hydrangea is it blooms on old wood and new wood, so you don't have to continuously prune it like you would most hydrangeas. Also, we've got an azalea here. This azalea is blouse pink. It's a Karime azalea. It's going to be an early spring bloomer, some beautiful pink blooms on that. And then you've got an ever-red rhododendron. This has got some really nice like burgundy foliage on it, which gives you kind of a foliage interest, also with a bright red blooming flower. That's going to be kind of later spring. So if you think about this group right here, we've got early spring, late spring, and summer and fall. So in your landscape, that's one thing I think is important for people to think about is you want interest all year round. So, that's a way you can do that, is to get different types of plants that are blooming at different times. So you always have something exciting going on in the garden.
At the same time. So we're talking about spring, summer, and fall.
Yeah.
But what about winter?
Hey, let's talk about winter.
What about winter? What are we going to do about winter?
So check this out, Sean. I was thinking about this last night. I was like, we need a couple of plants that really contrast in colors. And we've got a group right here. So it's all about that evergreen winter interest is what you need for those winter months. We've got a really nice plant here. We've got Cedrus atlantica glauca. Gives you this beautiful kind of a gray blue color, a powder blue color out in the garden, which contrasts so well with so many different things. There's not very many plants that give you that blue color out in the landscape, and it's evergreen, so you're getting that year round. We also have a cedar here. This is a beautiful plant. It's got a nice golden yellow like variegation on the new growth on that. Give you a bright contrast in color between the green older growth and the yellow. And then what do you got, Sean?
We've got the wildfire.
Yeah. So wildfire, man, gives you that bark interest in the winter. And I was really thinking about,
Yeah, that red bark in there, really, it's going to stand out again, especially if you put this, talk about again layering.
Right.
And you had this, and you have that bark color contrasting with that blue. It gives you, and that's that symphony. You got something performing all season long.
Absolutely. And I was thinking, pairing wildfire would work really nice with the glauca because you have this beautiful blue color. And one of the things with coral barks I've noticed is to really get that bright color that you want out of your winter interest on the coral bark, give it a background of an evergreen behind it. So, you could plant this in the foreground of your landscape and then put this out front so that you can have that contrast in color, because the fall color on this also goes to a bright yellow to oranges. So even in the fall, it's going to contrast really well with this. And then once it drops all its leaves, you got that fiery red and orange color on that bark behind or right in front of this blue color. It definitely would add some texture and color variation to your landscape.
And I like that word you use, texture.
Yeah.
Texture is very important when it does it. So think about when you look at your blank slate, when you look at your garden or your space that you're going to use, Don't be afraid. Go out there with your camera or your phone and take photos of that area and think about how I can layer. Here's my edge, and you can even have fun with the edge. You can make curves, you can make shapes, and you can build up. And you could use different objects in it to give you that depth. But remember, you want your foreground, your midground, your background, and your vertical, and you want something performing all season long. If you follow those simple things and just kind of plan out where you want to put that stuff, you're going to have yourself a really, really killer garden. Your neighbors are going to drive by and say, "Whoa, look at that."
That's one of the things I used to do. I'd go to these nice fancy neighborhoods and drive around and just like check out all their landscape design ideas and kind of implement that into my garden. But you know, we're talking about a lot of different things today. We're talking about colors and textures, levels, all of that. One thing I wanted to talk about, one of the reasons I picked some of these plants here was that a lot of times you have like a window out on the front of your house and you're wanting to be able to see out into your garden. You know, if you planted something that's going to be huge, like a Ginkgo or this Glauca, you're going to kind of lose that whole view of your garden space out there. So that's important to think about that. And a lot of these flowering shrubs that I pick, these stay very compact. I mean, these going to get like 3 to 4 feet in like 10 years. So, and you have an evergreen azalea here, and then you've got this ever red here. These would be a great like row of plants that you could plant near a window that wouldn't get too tall for you to be able to see outside.
And these as well, these can be pruned at the right time.
Right.
If there's blooms on them, leave it. If you cut them, if you go and trim them back and cut them down because they're starting to grow and block a view or something, don't do it when there's blooms on it. If you do that the next year, you're not going to get any blooms. But if you do it at the right time of the year, these actually can be worked with to help with that, where if you have it near a window or if you have it somewhere that's starting to grow over and cover something else, you can manage these.
Yeah, absolutely. And another great one for that spot, you want something low, is that hydrangea right there and the Orangiola low graft. You know, that's something that if you want to have a Japanese maples right there by your window, this is going to be a way you can do that without it just overtaking that whole entire space. You get a nice low weeping cascading habit on that. With some beautiful colors in the spring, and then that fall color is amazing on Orangiola. But yeah, I was just wanting to put together, you know, a nice grouping of plants that you could play with out in the landscape that would work well together. And again, one important thing is to always do your research. You know, that's like most people, they want to buy a plant, but they don't want to do the research, right? But that's so important because that's going to give you the most success in your landscape is if you've done the research on it. You know what zone it's rated for, you know its growth habit, and then with the design element, because you've done your research, then you've got all those contrasting and levels and bloom times, all of those things working together to give you this like cohesive design that really, you know, sets you apart from any other landscape out there.
And when you talk about do your research, something else you want to think about is sun exposure.
Yeah.
But with that, with your garden design, you can do that. Like you said, this Ginkgo is going to get big.
Yeah.
So when it gets big, it's going to provide shade. So then now you can come in with something that's going to need partial shade or something like that, that's going to be lower for that depth. But you can grow it underneath this. This is going to provide that shade. So think about your sun exposure, what will do well, and how to use other plants to provide the shade and the different things you need to grow other plants within your garden.
Absolutely. And one great thing about being a part of the MrMaple Mafia, we've got this new MrMaple Mafia thing going on, is that we provide so much information. You know, like, that's what I love about being a part of this thing, is that we provide so much information that's hard to find out there on a lot of plants. We're always trying to bring you just the very specifics of each one of these plants. And today we kind of wanted to try to get it more into that landscaping element of it. A lot of times we give you, you know, all of the zone ratings, all the characteristics, history behind these cultivars. But, you know, a lot of times you're needing that application of putting it actually into your landscape and how these plants work together. So I was really excited about that. So make sure you check out all these videos that we've got, because I mean, we have a lot of information out there that I think you guys can use to really be successful in your garden design.
And have fun with it.
Oh, man.
Have fun with it, because it's going to be something that's going to change. You put it in there and you might actually be like, so I always liked when I would design a garden, go in, we do the install.
Right.
And I would love to come back a year later, a year after that, and drive by and take a look and see, ooh, I see that's doing that. Oh, that's really, oh, hey, I probably could have done a little bit better with that choice of location.
Yeah.
And that's something else. With some of these, when you are designing, it's not a bad idea sometimes when you first get it, leave it in the pot and go place it in your garden. One, to see how it's going to respond to that area.
Yep.
And two, how aesthetically it's going to look.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit for you to decide how you want to lay out your garden. If you just start planting right away, you start, oh, but man, I shouldn't have planted that there. Now you got to try to move it. It may not be the right time of the year to move that plant. So yeah, take your time with it. Place things around and see how they work and how they fit your house and or your landscape, whatever it is that you're working with. I think that's a great point, to kind of slow down, because this is a long-term investment. You know, plants are not always an instant gratification unless you're buying giant 10 gallons or something, but, so yeah, take your time with it, slow down, think about your garden design, think about how you want to layer and contrast these different plants. And hopefully, man, this would be just a great landscape package.
Right here,
let's say you had you just built a new house and you got an open landscape and you're wanting to design. And I mean, this group of plants right here is a great place to start. You could buy all of these plants here at MrMaple. If something on these plants is not in stock, you can sign up to be notified when they come back in stock. But we're constantly trying to get these plants back into stock. We got plants that are down low that are growing off that'll be ready here in the summer, into fall. But
and these are just the ones that you picked out from this. That there are so many more. Definitely check out MrMaple.com, because you're going to find so many that even you said not available, but we have so many that are available.
Right.
Check them out, because there's so many different plants to really make your symphony pop.
Heck yeah, man. So, and I'm excited about this. I think if this goes well, if you guys enjoy this kind of video, I think me and Sean might start doing these different series of plants that we feel like work well together and kind of help you guys keep designing your landscapes. And hopefully you guys enjoy this video, because I was excited to put it together. I know we were talking about it the last couple of days. We wanted to get out here and show you something cool, a nice collection, a variety of plants where we're not just talking about maples, we're not just talking about ginkgos, we're talking about how all these different plants work together. Like you said, a symphony, it's almost like layering tracks on an album, right? I know you guys have been mixing an album on the new Carolina Drifters album, track by track by track, and by the end, man, you got this beautiful song that everybody's like, wow, check that out. But you can do that with your landscape. Each plant plays a role and has a part to play in your design. I'm excited to share it with you.
Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.